So I got to do chemistry reads with a bunch of different potential gins. And Jess did this thing that actors occasionally achieve, which is that she just, by the time the audition had finished, the chemistry read had finished, she had just made it absolutely impossible for them to cast anyone else.
Yeah.
And the second that she got off the call, everyone was just kind of like, well, Jess Hong.
This is actually an audience of your fellow actors. They're all SAG-AFTRA actors. Yeah. So I actually always love to go back to the beginning and just ask, what was your first professional job as an actor? It could be the first time you got paid for it or the first time you sort of felt like, I could do this.
Yeah, nice. Can I start?
Sure.
My first professional job was I did this training video for this fuel company back home called Zed. And I just went around with them for the day, driving and then doing something on my laptop. It was super chill.
Yeah?
Yeah. And that's like, it wasn't a public thing. It was just like a video that they would show to their staff.
Do you ever get people who recognize you and say, I worked at Zed and I remember you?
Never, but I wish. It was the peak of my career, you know.
Benedict, for you?
I starred in something called Last of the Summer Wine, and I played the role of Chinese man. And it was 1993, and it was raining, and my opposite partner, acting partner, was just sort of dressed in sort of dodgy Asian gear, and it was kind of and it was raining, and then the director was saying, give him more grease, and he splodged kind of grease on my vest, and I just looked to the heavens and said, it's got to get better than this. And we're doing okay.
You?
Hi, I am Zine. I'm so new. Before this, I was doing everything almost for free. Like, I'm sure everybody understands. Like,
Yes.
we do this stuff for free, right? And after doing 3 Body Problems, suddenly I can see a hope in my bank account. Right. So my first gig. Sure.
John?
My first job was Game of Thrones.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
What's Game of Thrones?
Yeah. Not familiar. Can you sum it up in 20 seconds or less?
It ends incredibly well. That was my first audition and my first job, and like one of those things where, you know, there are definite. I think in all of our lives there are definite before and after moments and before and after jobs, and people who come into your life at one point or another who you're sort of your angels and change everything for you. And David and Dan are my angels, and they came into my life all those years ago, straight out the gate, and they changed everything for me overnight. And with this show, they're continuing to give me interesting stuff to do.
Did you hear just now when you said it was your first audition, somebody literally said, shit.
It's not a popular answer when speaking to actors, but yeah, I'm stuck with it. It's the right answer, I'm afraid.
Alex, for you?
Was a play I did called The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime.
Someone should not put you and John together because you won the Tony Award for that play, didn't you?
I did.
Yes. So first job's out of the gate, and you did a commercial. You did an industrial. Okay, good. Go on. So
yes, no, it was crazy. I was it was very overwhelming, but obviously an experience that completely changed my life.
And was that right out of school you booked that?
Yeah, I booked it when I was still in school, and I didn't have an agent or a manager at the time. They were having trouble finding the right guy for it. So they kind of opened it up to the schools, the different acting conservatories. So me and like 4 of my classmates went in and auditioned for it.
Was that your first audition?
No.
Okay.
No. No, I before I went to Juilliard, I lived in Toronto and had an agent and was failing miserably at like getting Pepsi commercials. So yeah, no, I've definitely hit audition before that.
All right, we'll let it go then. Liam, for you?
Oh, I didn't. Well, I was late to the game, but it wasn't all roses. I was doing a play at the Abbey Theatre in Dublin, and I got cast screen-wise in a very nice movie called Into the West with Gabriel Byrne and Ellen Barkin.
And a horse.
And a horse, yeah. And this is why you should never give up. And I got cast in a kind of, a 4 or 5 day part, which was great. However, the original director got sacked. They replaced him. I had to audition again. I got it again. And then one of the kids, I don't know if you remember, there was 2 kids, 2 kind of traveller kids, gypsy kids, or whatever you want to call it, fell off the horse, broke his collarbone. They had to reschedule. And my scenes became nighttime scenes, and I was on stage at the Abbey, and I couldn't do it, and they felt sorry for me. Brought me in, put me in a police car to laugh at Gabriel Byrne, and I have 2 close-ups where I'm looking like that, and the other one is laughing. And they didn't even have a microphone, and they got somebody to go, ooh, when I laughed. So that was my bid for stardom on screen. It wasn't even me guffawing.
Also, you auditioned for it twice.
Yeah, and got the bigger part, and that went tits up as well when a kid broke its collarbone.
Oh,
so yeah, never give up.
Well, look at you now, and again, congratulations on a fantastic show. And by the way, I'm being picked up for a 2nd and 3rd season already. Yes, and it's such an incredibly vast story, and I'm so happy to know we're going to get to see it through. I'm curious for each of you, what was your familiarity with the books, if at all, and what sort of interested you in being part of the project? John, both you and Liam obviously worked with David Benioff and D.B. Weiss on Game of Thrones. Is it just sort of an automatic yes when they bring you anything?
It was the quickest yes of my career, I think.
Yeah, it was I thought at the time the stupidest yes, because I was in talk to do another kind of very large show, and I got a call from David and Dan, and they said, that job that you're in talks to, and I went, yeah. He said, you're not going with them, you're coming with us. And I literally went, yeah, okay. And I hung up, and I went, well, that was stupid. It could have been a day's work. It could have been a week's work, and I was turning down this vast multi-series big show. That's the level of faith that, as John just said, that's the level of faith we have in the quality of the writing.
By the way, Liam is in the show. I know you just watched the first episode, but he's a very significant guest. Has anyone seen this for the first time tonight? Okay, so just so you know, you're going to be seeing a lot of him.
I'm not somebody's +1 here, and I show up a little later on. Yeah.
I bring him to all the Q&As with me.
Yes. Our lucky mascot. I usually hold his coffee.
John, for you?
Well, David and Dan, they rang me up back in January 21, and they said, we're going to do this new thing. We're not going to tell you what it is, but all we're going to tell you is we're going to give you this character that's not like anything you've ever played before. It's probably closer to you than any character you've ever played before in your career. And we'll give you interesting things to do. We're not going to tell you what it is. And so I just said, it sounds amazing. And I knew I had so much faith in them from that point on that they were going to give me, a part that was worth playing. And then when I found out it was 3-body problem and I started to look into what that was and the scale of that adaptation, my admiration for them in terms of coming from Game of Thrones and then picking a source material that's even more ambitious and more scope to it and even harder to adapt. I just, they could have taken the easy way out and done like another fantasy thing or done something more straightforward altogether, but it's a huge testament to their courage and ambition that they've taken on a source material as complex as this. And yeah, I must admit, when they said it's a character based on you, and then I started to read the books and they were very complex sci-fi books set in China, I was like, hey? But I had faith in them that their adaptation was going to be something special, and I think it's proven to be so.
That's what I was going to ask, because I think Jack Rooney is probably the coolest character in the show, and maybe the one I relate to the most. But when someone says like it's going to be a character very much like you, do you then get nervous? Like when you start to read it, it's going to be like a serial killer, or
it's a bit just a loser. It's an asshole, but it's a bit like seeing yourself as drawn by one of those street caricature artists. They're the ones where they accentuate all the features that you hate most about yourself. I thought it was going to be a bit like that, but no, it's pretty accurate, I'd say.
Oh, cool. Alex, for you?
I read the scripts before I read the books because I'd heard of the books but I hadn't read them. Then I got the job and they sent me the scripts, so I kind of did it in reverse. And yeah, I was just blown away by Will's arc.
Yeah.
And the challenge as an actor, of going, the character gets to a place of accepting his own mortality, and I was kind of like, Jesus Christ, like I have no idea how to do that. So it was like very overwhelming, but an exciting challenge. And then I read the books and was blown away. Also, similarly to what John was saying, just at the ambition of an adaptation of that. So it was very exciting.
I'm just curious, was it always for that role of Will?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, how do you mean?
Oh, I don't know. This is such a talented cast. Like I could actually see several of you in like several different roles. So I'm just curious if when they sent it out, it was like specifically for Will.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, for Will. Yeah.
And Zine, for you, mentioning that this is one of your first roles, what was the whole process like? Did you audition on tape or meet them in person?
I auditioned via Zoom.
Oh.
Zoom call. And I skipped class to do that. I was in acting class in USC at my second year, and I have to pick one class out to skip so that I don't get into so much trouble.
Yeah.
The nicest coach I picked, his name is Christopher, and I'm sorry, Christopher. And yeah, that was like and the schedule was so tight. I had to go to class from 10 a.m. to like 6 p.m. Then we were doing a play for the midterm, and rehearsals coming after 7 p.m. to like 10 p.m. So I was doing, only chances for me to do auditions was to skip one class.
Have you since gone back to class? Because you're in a hit TV show now.
Well, if I were to decide to go back to USC, I had to start from the first year.
Gotcha. You have to start over?
Right. I have to start over. I can't just drop in because it's an ensemble.
Okay. But you'd been there for 2 years?
I've been there for like a year, then hit pandemic.
Oh, okay. And were you familiar with the story or the character at all?
Yes, but I read the book so probably like 9 years to 10 years ago, and I was reading it just for understanding like what's everybody else was talking about. They were my friends surrounded. They were very excited about that book at that period of time, and probably 2015, 16 was when I read the book. And Ye Wenjie wasn't my favorite character. My favorite was, okay, he's not here, but I'm not. In the book, the character. So the person who played my favorite character is not here today. So
can you say
but
who it
I don't
is?
want to leak any information.
Okay.
Because it's only first episode, right, for most of the people. So yeah.
I don't know. I kind of love your character because I sort of relate to someone who would just say, you know what, come and get us. We're screwed.
She's so screwed.
That's what I love about her. I absolutely understand that.
I didn't understand when I was like 9 years younger than now. Because by then I was very fancy. Okay, I'm just going to say it because in the book, 逻辑, I fancy the one that could decide things and go against people and people look up to him. That was when my 15, 16 years old.
Wow. And Benedict, for you, how familiar were you with this source material when you came on board?
I didn't know anything about it. I mean, I was filming Doctor Strange at the time, and Robert from Nina Gold's office wanted they wanted a Zoom, Dan, David, and Alex, and so it's kind of quite suspicious why there were like 3 showrunners for this project. So obviously I knew that kind of you know, with this being their next project from Game of Thrones, it was obviously going to be something, you know, massive. And so I didn't really know much about it. All they did was just send a character breakdown, and it just kind of read you know, he's from Manchester, his parents from Hong Kong, he's born in the 70s, and I was like, this sounds an awful lot like me. And then Alex confessed that he copied my Wikipedia page.
You're kidding.
So I was wooed by Alex Wu.
Oh, right. You're talking about Alexander Wu, not Alexander Sharp.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who did not cast Benedict in this
he
show.
doesn't.
I was not involved in that. No.
He's not in casting.
So he really had you in mind from the start.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think and Dan and Dave, when they were reading the books, they just went, "Oh, that guy." Anyway, so they mentioned my name. So thank you to their imagination. Yeah.
But you still have to say yes. I mean, what interested you in playing the character?
Well, you know, I rarely get to sort of play someone, you know, from where I'm from the north. Really, you know, play a lot of different characters, and that really appealed to me. And you know, embarking on the books, I just thought, wow, this is such a great character, Dasha, and I just kind of felt like, what better way to sort of make my sort of northern debut, really, in this massive TV series. Yeah. So
Wait, your northern debut, really?
Well, it's kind of like, you know, in a sense of like a massive series.
Yeah.
I've never done anything like that. Yeah.
That's so weird. Well, I guess I just think of you as being in everything in some weird way, or just all my favorite things, I guess.
Oh, thanks.
Jess, for you?
Yeah, I never heard of the books. And actually, right up until the last round of auditions, until I actually booked the role, it was still just called Untitled Benioff. So I didn't know that it was even based on books until right at the end. And then they were like, sweet, can you come to London in like 3 weeks? And then sent me the scripts, and then I downloaded all the books onto Kindle and attempted to read the entire first book while reading the scripts, which might have been a bit much. Made for some confusing days on set. But yeah, and then I completely fell in love with the world making of the books, and even just reading the draft scripts from those guys, I was like crying and laughing and gasping. I was like, wow, this is incredible. I get to work with this. Wow, what a privilege.
I'm actually curious about a lot of the scientific dialogue and you know, these big heady ideas. Do you always understand what you're saying? Or
Yeah, eventually. After research, yes.
Yeah, and Benedict, do you feel a little lucky to kind of dodge that and be on the order side?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm in the crime department. Yeah, the gumshoe. It's just kind of following the dots, really. And I think the audience are glad to sort of hold on to my character with that. But, yeah.
Well, your character in particular, I mean, he is so smart and complex, but he also gets to provide some really great comic relief. How do you sort of find the balance in that? It's, you know, in the script to some degree, but it seems like you're always able to find humor in you know, pretty much any role.
I think that's quite a northern attribute, isn't it? John,
Yeah,
as
definitely.
well,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I think it's and also doing a research with actually speaking to counter-terrorists, and you know, they're looking for that kind of levity, you know, in sort of really dark situations, and their sense of humor is dark at that too, you know. You know, for a while, I guess you kind of sort of desensitized by these certain things where, you know, you look at Wade and Dasha and they discuss how they're going to plan their attack, you know, and which can sound, you know, really horrific and shocking, you know, but to them it's a day's work, you know? Yeah.
And Jess, John, and Alex, you play, you know, three friends, members of this Oxford Five that have known each other for years. And I'm sort of curious because really when you are together, you do feel that chemistry. It seems very real and authentic. Was that sort of instantaneous? I don't know if you know, had any time to get to know each other before you filmed, or it's just really good acting.
Well, I won't go that far. But it was one of the unique things about this job. When it comes to building a relationship like that amongst an ensemble, it was in deep COVID. We started in October 21, so and a lot of that Oxford Five stuff, the scene in the pub and those big kind of ensemble scenes, they were right at the very start of the shoot. So there wasn't really much. Normally, when as a cast you get to know each other socially, you go for dinner and you go for a drink and you hang out. But we didn't really get too much time to do that outside of work. So it was just about snatching all the moments that we possibly can and just spending time with each other. But the thing about that is, and David and Dan, as you know, as Liam can attest from Game of Thrones, they cast people so well based on their personalities and how well they'll work together, and that they're nice people. Usually, they don't work with bad people. And Nina Gold as well. She feeds into that in the casting process. So they picked 5 actors who are all very different, of different disciplines and backgrounds, but it's a testament to their sensitivity in the casting process that it all gelled so well.
So there was never like any kind of a chemistry read with the 5 of you or anything like that?
Me and Alex got a chemistry read. That was cool. Over Zoom, classic from 3 different time zones. Yeah. New Zealand, what was it, Italy you were at?
I can't remember.
You were somewhere in Europe. Anyway.
Yeah.
And then they were here in LA. So that was beautiful. But Alex was pretty proactive. He actually reached out by email before we even did the read-throughs. Was like, hey, I'm your biggest fan. We haven't met in person at this point. And let's meet up and just like get to know each other. So we had a fun night, a Monday night on G&Ts.
G&Ts, a lot of G&Ts.
What's that? Oh, gin and tonics?
Yeah.
So was that before you did the chemistry read over Zoom, or?
Oh, no, after
okay.
I got into London. I think it was like that week.
What is a chemistry read over Zoom like? I know we're in this, weird era where we have to, pivot and find these things, but could you sense it even then?
Yeah. Well, yes, I think so. You do this awkward thing where you pretend you're looking into each other's eyes when you're actually looking slightly below at the screen where their faces. But yeah, I think you get at least some sense of the bond or how the other person is.
I want to tell this story. I was very, very lucky, and this had never happened to me before. I was one of the first people cast. So I got to do chemistry reads with a bunch of different potential djinns, and Jess did this thing that actors occasionally achieve, which is that she just, by the time the audition had finished, the chemistry read had finished, she had just made it absolutely impossible for them to cast anyone else.
Yeah. And
the second that she got off the call, everyone was just kind of like, well, Jess Hong. And it was an amazing thing to witness. She really blew it out of the water.
We have so many actors here. I think the question everyone really wants to know is, how do you make it impossible for people to cast anyone other than you?
That's a really good question.
Right?
I wish I knew the answer.
Right? Actually, let me throw that to Liam, because he's been doing this for a while, and you've been in every genre. Yeah.
Liam, she's talking to you.
Sorry, I just need to turn my hearing aid up.
No.
What was the question
Ask
again?
the question again.
Yeah. No, see, I was going to loop you in too, Benedict, and so now you've outed yourself. But as people have been doing this, for some time, in so many different genres and so many different mediums, what any advice you could offer in the audition room, I think, would be appreciated by actors.
I've always been of the opinion, and I say this to people who aren't actors either, when you are going in for your audition or your meeting or whatever it may be, nice people tend to forget that the people they're going to meet in the room, the only reason they're meeting you is because they have a problem. They need an actor or actress or whatever to play this part. They in reality they have no desire to meet you as a nervous actor coming in, but they're there. So in other words, when you go into the room is on your side because they have a problem that needs fixing, and they're hoping you will be the one that fixes it, filling the role. And I think a lot of actors forget that, and even when you're nice, you kind of go, oh well, it's an opportunity to display your talents and leave it at that. That the job is going into the room and auditioning. The job is not going to get the part. On the day, your job is to do the best you possibly can with the stuff that you believe in. And when you walk, I've done this many times, when I've walked out and didn't get the role, I would almost be relieved, because if they didn't see that I was right for the role, why the fuck would I want to work with them in the first place? And it's not arrogance. Because sometimes, so, we've all done it. When you were good, and you weren't so good, blah blah. Or, but occasionally when I've walked in, I know I got the kernel of it, and if they go, "Oh, it hasn't worked for you," kind of go, "The producers have hired the wrong people here." Because they should have seen that I was right for it. And it's not an arrogance thing. I've been thrown out of a room where I was wrong for something. But I go back to my previous answer. Never give up.
Mm. Do you see it to some degree that you're auditioning them as well? Like, do you want to work with these
100%.
people?
And I suppose when you've had a bit of success, the offers start coming in. Not all the time, but you do. Here's a script and there's an offer and blah, blah, blah. And I'm immediately kind of reticent about doing that. And it might read well or whatever, but I'd always want to meet who the hell is going to be giving me orders before I say yes to something, because I refer you back again. It might be some fool who just got the part, the director's role or whatever it may be. But you always should have a chat. You don't want to be arriving on set on the first day and your first take and everybody behind the camera is going, "What?" that can be quite depressing. Yeah.
I hope I'm not making this up, but Benedict, didn't you not have an agent for a really long time, even when you were booking big roles?
Yeah, I still don't have an agent. I'm here at...
I heard an actual, oh my God.
Wong and Only Management is doing very well. We've signed a Marvel deal, and obviously the Three-Body Problem gets a bit lonely at the Christmas party, but other than that, we're doing great. I think, I should be scribbling a book about this, actually.
Yes.
It was about 12 years ago, and pretty much being left on the shelf, really, and that was really going to be it, or I just take a hold of it and, represent myself. I started off very early on in the first 3 years of my career joining a cooperative where actors represent each other, and I was always representing 20 actors, and I was very eager to get them all work, and and was learning about the business, and yes, I'm just repping myself at the moment.
Just haven't felt the need to bring in anyone else because you're doing fine on your own.
No, yeah, I mean I tried, but so far.
Wait, you tried to get an agent?
Yeah. Hey,
do they hate money?
It'll be in the book. Well, yeah. I think they love it a bit too much. Yeah. But it was fascinating.
Yeah.
But I'm in a happy space at the moment. I'm kind of sandwiched between my Marvel duties and just enjoying this fantastic ride with incredible ensemble and. Yeah, very, very happy space.
Speaking of auditions, John, please tell us you've had a bad one. Because
oh my God.
Okay, good.
Unbelievable.
Okay. Please go on, because after I feel like we need to redeem you after you got your very first job from your very first audition.
Okay. Not far after that, probably in between seasons 2 and 3 of Game of Thrones, I went for an audition because I like that early on. I just went I didn't turn anything down at the audition stage, and they said, "Would you come in and audition for this commercial? It's for a Dutch health farm." And I said, "Yeah, fine. It'd be an experience if nothing else." And it was only when I got to the audition that I was told that the part I was auditioning for was the character's name was Fat Adolescent. Right. And the audition was I had to pretend to... there was a mark on the floor, and that was supposed to be the scale, the weighing scale. And I had to hold a bowl that was supposed to have lettuce in it. And I'd stand on the scale, and they keep throwing reactions at me. Like, okay, now this time you stand on the scale, and you've lost a bit of weight, but you've not lost quite as much as you thought you would, but you're going to be determined to carry on. So I stand there and be like, and it was just that over and over again. But the thing is that advert would have been on in the Netherlands while Game of Thrones was also on.
Wow.
So there could have been a commercial break in Game of Thrones,
Yes.
where Samwell, that you've just seen killing White Walkers, is gutted because he's not lost quite as much weight as he thought he would. So I think in terms of good auditions to bad auditions, we'll call that even.
You know what? You've done your time. You're forgiven.
And also, didn't get the part.
I was just going to say.
But there are some parts that you just rather not get. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they wanted fat adolescent, and the second you walked in, they were like, "Well, there he is." Would have been the best.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Again, it's much better to say we wrote this part with you in mind, and it's someone as cool as the character you're playing in this. Zine, I mentioned before that your character is such a force to be reckoned with. And again, I maybe relate to her a little too much. But from the very start, we see her go through so much. Is that ever a challenging place to be as an actor? Like, I don't know if you're the kind of actor who takes your work home with you. Is that difficult?
Oh, of course. I had this, because I'm so new, walking into the Shepperton Studios where we do sets up for the Chinese part of the story. I had never worked on a script that has a character created that I myself haven't seen anyone else to play it.
Mm.
So I see lots of people play The Winter's Tale. So then I probably can play Pauline by seeing other people and learning from other people to create a character. But Ye Wenjie's character was like, I've never visioned or see anybody, and I have to see myself as the character. So I was like having very insecure conversation with my director, Derek Zhang. Why did you cast me? So I asked him, and he said, it's not about your acting. It's about your face, look. So don't think that you're so good. Just do the work. Oh, okay.
Is that almost a relief to hear that, though?
It's very relieved to hear that.
Yeah.
So he doesn't care about acting. Turns out he cares the most. It's so hard to do his work.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. No, they have great directors on the whole series, and this show, I mean, it literally defies the laws of physics, and the visual effects are simply stunning. For those of you who haven't gotten there, wait till you get to episode 5. When you're performing on set, you're not actually seeing what the audience gets to see in the finished product. What was it like the first time you sort of like saw the show completed? We got a gasp.
It was, I found it so exciting, hugely, because I was very unaware of most of my part. Sort of sitting quite sadly on a beach while these guys were sort of flying around in harnesses. And I'd occasionally get a glimpse at it, but not really. I kind of intentionally like separated myself from it just because it was a whole different psychology and everything. And so when I finally got to see it, I finally got to see what all my pals had been doing. It was thrilling. And I was like, I'm in this show? Like, it's like kind of disjointed, but then you get to see the way that the showrunners stitched it all together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even being there for some of those scenes was still just like, wait, what? That's what we were doing? Because we would get shown by the SFX people these previs videos, and it would be like the Sims version of me and John like walking and then being floated up into the sky, and then all of these like stick figures kind of floating up as well. But you can't imagine what that's like when it's all beautifully realized and it actually looks like the thing is happening. It's like, whoa. But the thing that really excited me, the spectacle of it was incredible, but what really excited me was also getting to see all the other storylines that we didn't get any part of. Because it really was like we made all these separate series.
Yeah.
And they somehow threaded them all together. I was like, oh, that's what they did. Oh, they're so beautiful. Oh, and then you're crying along with everyone else. So it was great because then we got to be the fresh audience as well.
I think some of the hardest acting must have to be like putting on that headset, and pretending like you're seeing something that you don't even really know what you're seeing at the time because until you see the final product.
Yeah, I mean that's when your imagination comes into it. And as I was saying on the sort of in the Q&A yesterday, and I think it's an important thing to kind of remember sometimes, that people say, oh, it must be difficult to do green screen stuff and imagine that there's a whole panorama there that you can't see. I think you think, well, hang on a minute, you actually find that really easy to do when you're a child.
Yeah.
When you're a little kid, you can imagine that your mum's living room is a pirate ship or a spaceship or wherever. But as you get older, I think barriers go up and you get a bit self-conscious and a bit embarrassed, and you don't feel ready to, or you don't feel capable of giving yourself over to your imagination in the same way. So I don't think it's about learning anything or learning how to do it. You just got to get rid of those self-conscious barriers that you put in as you get older. And then you can access something really childlike and really imaginative. It's still in there. You've just kind of embarrassed it out of yourself.
Yeah.
just on that, and then there's the added thing of imagining everything and the stamina of imagining everything. Hold, we're going to change the scene over. We're just going to flip the set around. And then going back to imagining everything.
Right.
So for me, that was the challenge, was the starting of screen practice. Because in theater, you're imagining the thing, but you get to live out your entire story arc in the moment from beginning to end. Whereas, we'd do the thing, we'd be there, and then we'd go off for like 20 minutes, and then we'd come back and we'd be, okay, remember, you're exactly there in that moment. And it might be for those green screen bits, like for 3 seconds. And you're just doing that 3 seconds all morning.
And then break for lunch.
And then break for lunch, and then you come back to the 4th and 5th second. And so that was an interesting thing, a test of stamina, I guess.
Well, it's such a beautiful show. I want to remind everyone, all 8 episodes are streaming now on Netflix, so you can watch it again and again. Thank you so much for being a great audience, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.